You're leading 1-0, 74th minute. You need to get back in competition. Zimbabwe is the worst team in this group. They have only 3 points in 5 games. You're at home. You are in Oyo, in the Akwa Ibom. The stadium is full. There are a lot of people anticipating. You went to Kigali and you got a good result. 2-0 away result up in Rwanda. That would have been the game that I would have thought. Away game, tough climate to go play. Out in Rwanda, you got a result, and you come back home. You see, this is the thing we talk about in Nigeria. They have been celebrating too much and dancing kerewa.
I think this goes to show, or it should give us, anybody listening to us, or people who are paying attention, that there seem to be no small teams on the continent anymore, or maybe even by extension in the world of football anymore. So if you think you're a powerhouse, you have to rethink it. If you've paid attention, because as a Ghanaian, I know Comoros very well because they were in our group in Egypt when when they kicked us out by scoring us 3-2, shamefully kicking us out from the group stage in Egypt during the African Cup. So I have paid close attention to them for some time now, and they play very good football.
Barcelona versus Dortmund.
Barca Dortmund, yeah, it's a weak matchup. There's absolutely nothing Dortmund can do.
I actually think Lamine Yamal and Rafinha and Lewandowski attack Pedri, Gavi.
There's absolutely nothing if they can go and consult gods. They should just pray they don't concede a lot of goals.
Welcome to another episode of Football Talk. My name is CT, and once again, I got Danny here with me. Danny, welcome to another show here, another episode of Football Talk as we take a look at football basically all over the world. This time, we're going to get some international football talk. So, how's it going? How's it going since the last time?
Oh, thank you very much. It's been a while since we last connected. But the beautiful thing is the football never stops. So I'm happy to discuss today's segment of items we have on the list. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to talking football.
Oh yes, I'm excited about it. As per this recording, it's Tuesday, March 25th. So a lot of the European, Asian, 2026 World Cup qualifiers would have been ending, getting into a stretch run in European leagues. So excited to get back into that. We're going to talk some Champions League, some Premier League, a little bit of European football. But we're going to begin from what is currently just ending, which is World Cup qualifiers around the world, Nations League in some continents as well, ending, but we're going to be focusing on Africa specifically. If you don't know, the 2026 FIFA World Cup is going to be held in the United States of America, Canada, and Mexico. So 3 countries are going to be hosting the 2026 World Cup. So that's going to be a fun World Cup within the 3 North American countries. But also interesting about this next World Cup in 2026 is that we have an expanded field. Usually you get 32 teams in the FIFA World Cup. For the 2026 FIFA World Cup for football, it's going to be 48 teams, which brings an interesting dynamic to the qualifiers about how many teams are going to be coming from each continent. Focusing on the African continent, we do have 9 automatic bids to the World Cup. So there are currently 9 groups with 6 teams. Whoever tops these 6 teams gets an automatic bid for their group or for an African bid to represent Africa in the 2026 World Cup. So we got 9 groups, but also there's going to be a little bit complicated, but there's going to be a second round where the 4 best second finishers get to play sort of a mini playoffs, where the winner of the playoffs gets to play an inter-federation playoff, where 2 of the final, I think about 6 teams would be able to book a place in the World Cup. It's kind of like a playoff round, 2 remaining sports, that's 46 automatic spots. The 2 remaining spots, there will be a playoff for it. The way that works is there's going to be 1 team from Africa. There's going to be 1 team from Asia. There's going to be 1 team from CONMEBOL, that's South America. There's going to be 1 team as well from Oceania, and 2 teams from CONCACAF as well that would be in this inter-federation. I know it's a little bit complicated here, but 2 teams are going to come out of these 6 teams from that's all the federations, the global federations. Oceania is represented. No UEFA in this interconfederation playoff, but 2 out of Africa, Asia, South America, and Africa gets 1, and then 2 from CONCACAF will be playing an interconfederation qualifiers where 2 out of those 6 teams will be qualifying. A little bit complicated, but the direct part about this is that 1 out of 9, if you win your group in Africa, you go automatically to the World Cup. So for that, is that a little breakdown of what we're looking at. But because I'm Nigerian and Danny is Ghanaian, we're going to be putting a special focus on Nigeria and Ghana. So Danny, we're going to be talking about this a little bit here about what do we think about the Nigerian chances to make the World Cup, and what do we also think about the Ghanaian chances to make the World Cup. Is Tuesday, March 25th. Nigeria just played their 6th game. Ghana has also played 6 games. So we'll take a look into their groups. I'm going to focus on those 2 groups specifically when kind of going through this. So Nigeria, I'll start with Nigeria because there's a lot to talk about Nigeria. I'll allow you, Tani, to get in a bit, but just going to set it up here. Nigeria is currently in group. I think we're in Group C. Would it be Group C? Yes, we're in Group C of the African World Cup qualifiers. Just going through it, there are 6 teams in every group. So we got South Africa, Rwanda, Benin Republic, Nigeria, Lesotho, and Zimbabwe. And if you notice the order that I said that has something to do with the order in the table where each of those teams currently are. South Africa is leading this group with 13 points after 6 games played. Rwanda, Benin Republic, 8 points after 6 games played. Nigeria with 7 points after 6 games played. Lesotho and Zimbabwe at bottom of the table. 5th position, Lesotho has 6 points and Zimbabwe has 4 points. But to continue this conversation, we're going to start with Nigeria. I'm going to do both, and we're going to talk about Nigeria and Ghana, but I'm going to just set the table. Nigeria, the last 2 games, Nigeria went to Kigali, played against Rwanda, went away from home and won 2-0, 2 Victor Osimhen goals. Impressive victory, you would say, away from home. And in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, on the 25th of March 2025 at home, they drew 1-1. I saw some reports where it was reported as a loss. It was a 1-1 draw, but you can see why people think that Nigeria lost the game at home to Zimbabwe, that is currently last in the group. Was only 3 points in the group so far in 5 games. Now they have 4 points after the draw, but Nigeria played 1-1. Victor Osimhen with a 74th minute goal and an equalizer. I would remember that in the 90th minute for Tawanda Chirewa. I will remember that name, I think, for Zimbabwe, kind of almost knocking Nigeria out of competitiveness in the qualifiers. I'll just go through Ghana a little bit here, and then we'll talk about it. We'll just have time to talk about this. Ghana is in Group I. Ghana has won all Group I, right? Yeah.
Yes.
They currently have 6 teams in that group. Ghana has won 5 and lost 1, has 15 points, leads the group. I thought it was comfortable, but no, it's not comfortable. You got Comoros with 12 points, Madagascar with 10 points after 6 games. Mali is 4th with 9 points, Central African Republic 5 points, and Chad doing Chad things. Chad has zero points in this group. And just to recap the last 2 qualifiers within the last week for Ghana, Ghana actually had an impressive 2 games. The first game, they played Chad. Well, Chad is last position with 0 points, and Ghana did what they're supposed to do to Chad at home, and they won 5-0. 5 goals, Antoine Semenyo, Inaki Williams, Jordan Ayew with a penalty, Mohamed Salisu, and Ernest Nuama with the 5 goals for Ghana. And just yesterday, Monday, March 24th, Ghana got a 3-0 victory away from home at Madagascar. Thomas Partey with 2 goals and Mohamed Kudus getting the other goal for Ghana. So, Danny, let's talk about these qualifiers and the paths for both teams in your, from what you think about. Do you think Nigeria, we'll start from Nigeria first, and I'll comment on that and then we'll get to Ghana. Do you think Nigeria has a chance to be in the 2026 FIFA World Cup hosted by US, Mexico, and Canada?
Oh, thank you very much. I think there's a reason why people are taking the results earlier today as a loss. because everything was on the line for Nigeria in terms of catching up to South Africa or being as close as possible before the next round of games. So having drawn this game, it is football, so it is not absolute just yet. But from how South Africa is performing so far, I foresee Nigeria maybe being the second best in the group and possibly squeezing itself out through the best four second place teams in each group to play in the qualifiers you mentioned earlier. That is the most I can see for Nigeria currently based on the form and the results so far. And one other thing that has been slightly disappointing has been the lack of goal outlets outside of Osimhen. It paints a very worrisome picture, given the fact that Nigeria currently, at least on paper, has arguably the best attack on the continent in terms of the front line and where they play and how they play, and even the goals they've contributed so far in the top flight divisions across Europe. So it is quite surprising that when they come back home, there seems to be for all intents and purposes, it looks like there seems to be a challenge on outlets that can deputize Osimhen in terms of scoring goals and leading the team in a certain direction. Before this new coach came, this Sele, I've forgotten his
Eric
name.
Eric Chell.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Before Eric came, Nigeria, we knew where Nigeria was. So having won by 2 goals against Rwanda, the hope, at least for almost everyone who, specifically Nigerians, was that this would help with the momentum. And to a large extent, it did against Zimbabwe. And if anybody who is listening to us is to go back to the highlights, or for those who watched, how Nigeria conceded the equalizer is an eyesore, especially for the defenders that were playing on the day, and then where they play, and then given the fact that they play week in, week out. That was a very, very poor goal to concede, especially in the last minutes, playing at home with everything on the line. So it's a worrying thing to see. It would be unfortunate if Nigeria doesn't make it to the World Cup. But as things look now, it doesn't look likely that Nigeria can make it. That is pragmatically. But as I said, football is a game that sometimes doesn't make any sense. Sometimes it's not as logical as you'd want it to be. So I can't write off Nigeria just yet. Because as mentioned, Nigeria has the firepower. I don't know why the likes of Boniface do not get a shout in this team. Granted, the few times he's played for Nigeria, he hasn't been as efficient. I don't know whether it is based on the setup or just the fact that he's not as used to the teammates. But it is a worrying thing to know. And then there's the African best on the team as well, who is firing on all cylinders for Atalanta, but seems to be struggling in these qualifiers. So, on the one hand, as mentioned, pragmatically, it doesn't look like Nigeria will make it. But I won't write Nigeria off just yet, given the amount of firepower that Nigeria has in the front.
I am glad that you are very, I would say you have put out the case clearly. First thing I have to say is I don't find this any bit funny what Nigeria has done in these qualifiers. This seems like a good group to be able to come out.
Yes.
The tournament has been expanded, so you get a little bit more slots, your chances actually increase to be able to make the competition, right?
Yes.
Getting more groups, the way it's seeded by FIFA ranking and all that. And Nigeria is struggling. Nigeria, as you said, considered what you're leading 1-0, 74th minute. You need to get back in competition. Zimbabwe is the worst team in this group. They have only 3 points in 5 games. You're at home. You're in Oyo in the Akwa Ibom. The stadium is full. There are a lot of people anticipating. You went to Kigali and you got a good result, 2-0 away result up in Rwanda. That would have been the game that I would have thought, away game, tough climate to go play. Out in Rwanda, you got a result, and you come back home. You see, this is the thing we talk about in Nigeria. They have been celebrating too much and dancing kerewa. These people have been dancing kerewa. But first of all, I'm going to state my own personal case and my problem with this, and I'm going to take a look at my fellow people. This World Cup is coming to Canada, US, and Mexico. Nigeria wants to embarrass me. Nigeria wants to put me to shame and have nobody that I can actually support.
I'll get you a Ghana jersey.
So, Thank you very much. Are you telling me that in a group somewhere in Canada here, I cannot put on a green and green because Nigeria has decided? You said it. You are very, very optimistic, but I think this was it. This is it. They are not going to the World Cup. So, what I would say is, if we leave the footballing part of it, the fact that no other person can score goals except Osimhen, the fact that you're leading with about few minutes to go in the game and you cannot shut it down at home, put pressure and make sure you don't kind of concede that. You get your coaching not setting it up properly. The players on the field, Osimhen was very pissed. He did his job, I would say that. But the other parts of the team, at the end of the game, not being able to do what they need to do to shut it down. I even want to put that at the corner to state my own case. I have to start applying and trying to get my Black Star verifications, endorsements, right? Because World Cup must happen. The World Cup must happen. So with Danny's permission here, we'll start looking into Ghana as an option. Ghana needs to secure that. We'll get to Ghana in a bit. But at least we know that backup. Maple Leaf, Canada. We'll just So what I'm saying right now is that I'm open for the 2026 World Cup, for where I would go to be part of this World Cup event. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. But looking at it in general, very disappointing. I think this is it for Nigeria. In my opinion, they should have done a little bit better. Very disappointing in my as a Nigerian as well. But there's a good thing. We still got our African brothers. We can talk to our Ghanaian friends. We call them friends this time until we argue about other things. But for now, see if they can actually let us into the party. If Canada also allows us, we get into the party as well. But this will be not Nigeria kind of doing this, not to allow me to be a full part of this World Cup, is absolutely disappointing. That's how I'm looking at it. I don't want to say more than that. I know a lot of people are pissed about Nigeria not being in a Premier tournament. An expanded field for the 8 teams would be interesting. But I would have to say, as at right now, I'm speaking to you, Ghana is an option. Let Ghana secure theirs, and at least we'll hold Canada for hand. As they say, if they embarrass you, choose another side to go and join it. So that's how I would leave it for now. But I think I wouldn't say it was interesting just watching that. That's the thing. I don't watch Nigerian football as much as I used to growing up. It's just heartbreaking. It's a common thing. So I would leave it at that. Let's get to Ghana and what you think about Ghana's part 2 being in the 2026 World Cup, currently having 15 points, leading their group. There's 4 more games to go. I think, 6 teams, 10 games, home and away. So there's 4 more games to go. They have 15 points. They are so very close. Comoros Islands. Impressive. I'm not sure I know any player in that team, but what do you think about Ghana's chances with Comoros breathing down their neck, 3 points behind? Madagascar, 10 points. Well, they got a very impressive 3-0 win against Madagascar. That was huge. But let me hear what you think about Ghana's chances of making the World Cup.
Okay, again, thank you very much. I think for Ghana's chances, maybe Nigeria can compensate itself with the African Cup, right? Because you've qualified for the African Cup, whereas Ghana could not qualify. And I'm mentioning this as a prelude to what I'm about to say, because it was the team received a lot of flack back home for not qualifying for the African Cup of Nations, especially when we were seen to be in a comparatively inferior group, right? So on the back of the backlash they've received in the past year for their poor showings towards the African Cup of Nations qualifications, the stakes were high. And I think they just lived up to it this time around with the 2 games they've played. That was on Sunday, either Saturday or Sunday, and yesterday, that was Monday. And as you mentioned Comoros, and then you were hesitant as to whether you know them or not. But I think this goes to show, or it should give us, anybody listening to us, or people who are paying attention, that there seem to be no small teams on the continent anymore, or maybe even by extension in the world of football anymore. So if you think you're a powerhouse, you have to rethink it. If you've paid attention, because as a Ghanaian, I know Comoros very well because they were in our group in Egypt when when they kicked us out by scoring us 3-2, shamefully kicking us out from the group stage in Egypt during the African Cup. So I have paid close attention to them for some time now, and they play very good football. The Comoros government has invested heavily in sports infrastructure, and it seems to be paying dividends in real time as we speak. So I'm not too surprised with the turnout so far in terms of how they are going neck to neck against Ghana and even Madagascar as well. Because before the game, when Ghana played against Madagascar yesterday, it was a top of table clash, right? So we knew it was going to be difficult, only for the Black Stars to surprise us with 3 goals. But Madagascar has been playing very well as well. And when they came to Ghana, it took a last-minute goal by Inaki Williams in the 90th, the last kick of the game, 90+5, to get a 1-0 win over them. So again, I'm putting this in context to say that there are no easy teams anywhere. So if you go into a group and then you have this mindset that, oh, I am big enough, so I should bulldoze my way through the group and then qualify for the World Cup, then you have to rethink it. And classical case in point was Ghana's failure to qualify for the African Cup and Nigeria's current struggles with qualifying for the World Cup. Given that the teams in the group, on paper, the only team that should even think of having a conversation with Nigeria should be South Africa. But here we are, right, where Nigeria is battling with the likes of Rwanda and Lesotho. Right, so Ghana's chances of exactly, right. So because the Zimbabwe I've known, there was one player that I've always adored because he used to play for
Benjamin Warwari. Could that be him?
No, there was this guy who played for Orlando Pirates.
Oh
no, the guys that were they are in Johannesburg. This Johannesburg.
Yeah. In South African local league.
In the South African league.
Oh, okay.
Fantastic player. I've forgotten his name, but I hope I can.
If you remember, you can just cut in. Yeah.
Yes. So ever since I've known the Zimbabwean national team, he's the one that has been at the Kamabiliat. His name was called Kamabiliat. Kamabiliat. Yeah, he used to play for I've forgotten the name of the team, but Orlando Pirates. There are these 2 top teams in South Africa. Orlando Pirates, and then there's the other rival that plays in Johannesburg.
Melody Sundowns. I only know a few teams in that country.
Sundowns. There is the Sundowns, which came up recently. But the traditional, they have 2 traditional clubs that play in the league, and then they used to play their derbies always often. But that was Kamabiliat. But Kamabiliat has retired for some time now. So
Kaizer Chiefs.
Thank you.
The Kaizer Chiefs. Yeah.
He used to play for Kaizer Chiefs. So I say this just to say that, as you mentioned, there are 4 games left, and every game is going to be a tough contest. Mali would not come easy if Ghana is to play against them. Not to talk of Comoros, right? So it is not done yet for Ghana, and I just hope the players come September, because that is when the next round of games will be played. They would know what is at stake and then stand up accordingly to it, because it is not done yet, given how the group is looking so far. But at least back in Ghana, and for every Ghanaian, given how our African Cup of Nations qualifiers went, we take these 2 results for the World Cup in good stride, because we didn't expect them to do this well. They've been very poor for some time now. So as to where they got the motivation from, we hope they can keep it up.
Yeah, that's 8 goals in 2 matches. No matter the competition you play, 8 goals, especially when you play these continental games and qualifiers, they seem to be very low scoring games.
Very tough, exactly.
Very tight, low scoring games. So for Ghana to comfortably get 8 goals, 5 against Chad, 3 against Madagascar, that has proven to be a pretty good team. I think that's something to take off. And not just getting that, because Nigeria could have gotten 2 wins, but still be in a tight race, but getting these 2 wins and kind of setting up themselves for a good run to the end to qualify for the World Cup, right? So I would say Ghana has put themselves... Yeah, just give them a little breathing room. They would be the favorite to qualify from that group right now. If for nothing, only being at 15 points. I think I was just taking a look here, because there's something they call Group J, which is like a group just to see who are the top 2nd position players right now in Africa. And that group that would qualify for the playoffs, 4-man team playoffs, to get 1 person to represent Africa in the Interconfederation playoffs, right? You have Gabon right now with 15 points. Gabon is 15 points with being second position, right? You got Cameroon, 12 points, Senegal, 12 points, Namibia, 12 points, Comoros, 12 points, Mozambique, 12 points, Burkina Faso, 11 points at seventh position. And what I'm trying to get at is with Ghana's current 2 games, 6 points, 8 goals difference, not conceding any goal, it puts them in a great position that even if they slightly or somehow miss out qualifying for the World Cup again to either Comoros or Madagascar, they put themselves in a fantastic position to be one of the top 4 teams. Gives them a chance to kind of backdoor their way into the World Cup. Nigeria doesn't have a backdoor. You're 7 points. You're not even anywhere close to second in the country with 4 games to go. If you're going to get 7 points in 6 games, what's the guarantee you can get 7 points in 4 games? So to even kind of get anywhere close to 15, 12, 13
they might
points.
They might get 9 in 4. You never know.
Yeah, then you're hoping that South Africa completely collapses to be able to do that. That's also possible, but at this moment, I'm not actually holding my breath. But as I said, if Ghana does get it done, we'll be out here to kind of support the Black Stars. I have supported the Black Stars before in a World Cup, and since we're talking about it and we're in that spirit, when I think of the Black Stars, I think of Luis Suarez. Since we're talking about it, Danny, tell me, can you kind of replay that match for me, how you remember that game? Because I kind of remember how I remember it, but I remember it as a Nigerian supporting Ghana in the World Cup, having a fantastic run as Samuel Gyan. You got them almost like this was getting to the quarterfinals or semifinals, something historic, right?
Yeah.
If they beat Uruguay in that game. I know I just thought about it now, but do you remember that game at all in terms of when you remember what Luis Suarez did and Samuel Gyan missing the penalty after that?
I think interestingly, it was 15 years ago. Yeah. Even
it's been a minute.
Saying it was 15 years ago just makes me feel some way because it was in 2010. And we're
2010 World Cup.
Yes. Right. And
would it be 2010? 2010 was hosted by South Africa.
Yes, that was when
this happened? Oh, yes. Okay.
2010.
Yeah, it will be 2020. I'm thinking 2010, 2014, but yeah,
no,
probably 2010.
Ghana got out in the group stage. It was one of the most disastrous campaigns we've had in the World Cup. But it was in 2010. And I remember the day very vividly because I was in high school at the time. And we had all convened in the dining hall because the school allowed us. There was a projector. Everybody was feeling patriotic and whatnot. And what happened, unfortunately. And till date, Asamoah keeps getting nightmares about it because I think he gets the nightmares that he's getting just like Baggio did in '94, the USA '94, and Roberto Baggio missing the penalty kick against Brazil also. So in Ghana's case, it was making a step towards a semi-final appearance for the first time for any African side. Before Morocco did it in the very recent World Cup. I don't know how to describe the feeling because I think when he missed the penalty, I was just instantly I started feeling hot. I was trying to rationalize, trying to make it make sense to me and to almost everybody else, right? Because he happens to be the most prolific or one of the most prolific penalty takers in the team. And if you had to ask any Ghanaian, would rather not have anybody behind the ball than him, right? But for me, it just also emphasized the fact that these are human beings and things happen. And sometimes when the pressure cooker is very high, certain players have to step up. And in many instances, they miss it. Messi against Uruguay in the Copa America final, before he won it eventually, he ballooned one penalty out of the field, right? So these things happen to some of the best. And I think that brings the humanness to the game back into the game, because at certain points you might think certain players are invincible, but just as with everything else, they also feel certain degrees of pressure. And funny enough, in the penalty shootout, Asamoah went to take the first one and he dispatched it easy. But then every other person, Ghana is not known to be a country that is quite good at penalties. AFCON 93, when we played against Ivory Coast, we lost on penalties. All the way to AFCON 2015, met Ivory Coast again in the final. Ghana was leading by Cote d'Ivoire missed 2 of their first penalties. Ghana still managed to lose the final on penalties, and then Cote d'Ivoire won with the Arthur and the likes, and Javino and the likes. They just won the African Cup. So Ghana has at least historically, we are not a good penalty taking team. Individually, there are some good players who can dispatch them here and there. But when it is a full-blown penalty shootout, we struggle. So the hope was we don't want to get to that point. But sadly, we were dragged into it, and then it just showed that the others didn't have the balls that it takes to play a penalty or to go into like a tense penalty shootout, especially with the weight of pressure that came with it, because it was on the African continent. Every African country was supporting Ghana.
Ooh. Yeah,
it was like, the stars have aligned in a certain way, but man proposed, God disposed. So
and Luis Suarez caught the ball as well.
If I were in the field, I would do the same thing. So
I felt that instant moment of like, God damn it. Like, it's that moment you look at Luis Suarez, and I remember that was when his whole biting players thing was going on, and you were like, what a dirty player, and you realize how patriotic what he did was, and you're like, oh man, I'm not Uruguayan.
Yeah, it happens.
It's better. It happens. No, I remember that. And when you said that Asamoah Gyan is still having, I don't know, is it Gyan or Jan? I think that always goes Jan. Asamoah Gyan is still having nightmares about that penalty kick.
Like, I saw
recently he commented about it, and I was like, no, he had a good point. He was like, no other person had the balls to take it. He had it and he missed it, and it happened. So I know he still thinks about that a lot. It's still a conversation that comes up for him. And we're going to get into the UEFA Champions League. The last time we talked here, we didn't get into the knockout stage. So we're going to do I'm just going to do a little brief review of the Champions League and give your takes on the round of 16 matchup. I know that we've had the round of 62 and the whole playoff playing thing, but we're going to get closer to where we are right now. So in the round of 16, we had a few matchups here that actually led to the 8 teams we have in the quarterfinals right now. So just going through the matchups here, the second legs and the aggregate victory. So Barcelona played Benfica. Over 2 legs, Barcelona won 4-1. In the first leg, 1-0 away from home, and then 1-3-1 comfortably. Rafinha being the star for Barcelona. Milan won Feyenoord 2-1 in the second leg, on aggregate 4-1. I call what Inter Milan did with Feyenoord a professional win, 2-1. No, actually 2-0, 2-1. 2-0 away from home, 2-1 in the second leg. Very professional, 4-1 aggregate, handled Feyenoord easily. Liverpool versus PSG, second leg, PSG won 1-0. First leg ended 1-0 in favor of Liverpool. PSG was the better team over 2 legs, and they won the penalty kick as well. I think that was just in the fact that in the first leg, Liverpool won, but PSG probably dominated that game. The next game, Bayer Leverkusen lost 2-0 in the second leg, 5-0 on aggregate. Complete disappointment for Bayer Leverkusen. Bayern Munich dominated them over 2 legs. And then Dortmund qualified to the next round by beating Lille over 2 legs, 3-2. Second leg, 2-1 away from home. So Dortmund gets to go to the quarterfinals. We have Aston Villa comfortably dispatching of Club Brugge of Belgium, 6-1 on aggregate. Absolutely impressive and dominant victory for Aston Villa. Arsenal also had a dominant victory over 2 legs, 9-3 on aggregate. First leg 7-1, second leg 2-2 against PSV Eindhoven. And Atletico Madrid playing Real Madrid, the Madrid derby, ended 2-2 on aggregate. Atletico won the second leg 1-0 after losing 2-1 in the first leg to Real Madrid, and Real Madrid does what Real Madrid does in the Champions League and won on penalties to advance to the quarterfinals. So I'm just going to go ahead here and just put the schedule for the quarterfinals here, just the matchup, and then we're going to talk about that recap from the last round and also what we think about the Champions League going forward. Bayern Munich is going to be playing Inter Milan. Arsenal would be playing Real Madrid. Barcelona will be playing Dortmund. PSG versus Aston Villa. That would be the 4 quarterfinals game. So Danny, going back to the Champions League, let's start with a recap, and then we're going to talk about who would win the Champions League or what we think. For a recap of the round of 16 or how the Champions League has been so far, one thing I would first ask is, what do you think was the most intriguing or exciting matchup from the round of 16 playoffs, and what did you actually take away from that round of 16 Champions League fixtures?
Yeah, I think for the Champions League, the 2 games that stood out for me were the games between PSG and Liverpool for obvious reasons, and then Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid as well for what the game signifies. And for the other games were also quite interesting, but in terms of matchup and just the quality of play and the prestige of what the games came with, I would go for these two games, and I'll just zero in on Liverpool PSG. I think as you mentioned in your submission, it was not a contest to start with. Even though, yes, the margins were very slim, but for everyone that watched the game could tell that something is happening or something is cooking in Paris. And it was very evident in the two legs, even though the second leg was a little closer in terms of possession, and there was a certain semblance of parity in terms of how the two teams had chances of scoring or winning the game. But the first leg, Liverpool was played off the park. For the Liverpool PSG game, had it not been for the heroics of Alisson, it would have been done in Paris. But even from the press conference before the Anfield game, how Luis Enrique was speaking, the confidence with which he spoke, and then the confidence with which Vitinha spoke coming into the game, you could tell that the Parisians had a feeling Liverpool was not a match for them, and it was very evident that they were able to take the game to them and then kick them out of the Champions League, and moving the game away from Liverpool to Atletico Real Madrid. It is just unfortunate that I think on 5 or 6 attempts, Atletico still comes short against Madrid in the Champions League. And in as much as I empathize with them, I can't blame them entirely too, because this is Madrid's tournament. Madrid always has a way of making things happen. At least over the past 5 to 10 years, Madrid has set itself up in such a way that if you want to kill it with 5-6 goals or 4-5 goals. If you leave the margins to be that close, they always find a way to win. And Madrid always gives you the feeling of you can win. If you are the opponents, they give you that feeling. That's all. The team is not as...
Come try.
Exactly. Right? On the outside, it's like the team is not as complex as anything, but you play against them, and then if you leave the margins too low, they'll find a way to creep back in and then kick you out. That is why I've enjoyed how Barcelona has handled them so far this season. 4-0, 5-2. Right, you dispatch them comfortably, right? Just so they know they've been properly beaten. So it was just unfortunate that Atletico again had to face the brunt of Madrid, and eventually they lost. We can argue about the controversy that came with the penalty shootout and Alvarez's double kick and everything, but I have my strong opinions about it. I feel for such a high profile game, it could have been overlooked. But it's just unfortunate that things played out this way, and sadly Atletico is out.
Yeah, I think the tough part about it was the way the whole replay was handled, considering that the referee didn't see it on the pitch. That's the Julian Alvarez penalty kick, and I think that changed the mentality of the next kicker. I think that was Bellingham and stuff, and changed the dynamic of the game. In my opinion, even if you were going to give that, there should have been a stoppage of the game to explain and clarify. I was watching the game. I was not sure what the decision was. You see the referee signaling and whatever. If there's going to be a change, there has to be proper communication, and everybody kind of understanding what exactly the decision was by the referee. But I think that was interesting. And just going back to the same point, or rather the point that I was trying to talk about, exciting. I think there were 2 highly anticipated games in the round of 16. And they were everything you would hope for in a football match, right? That's what I would say. Those 2 games were like the 2 games you thought were the biggest games, and they somehow played out to be the most intriguing games at the end. I think Atletico Madrid gave Real Madrid a run. Anything that they could handle in that round, Madrid kind of just found a way, as Ancelotti and this Madrid team has done for years now, to actually get results in that game. But for some reason, in this Champions League, at least this early in the Champions League, has been absolutely fantastic. The matchups that we've been able to get. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you about the next round of matches and who specifically would win, in your opinion, the UEFA Champions League at this point, looking at the 8 teams remaining. But what fantastic matchups we have had in the round of 64, the I wouldn't call it 64, round of 32, round of 16, the whole playoff round. It has been an absolute hit for me, the adjustment of the competition for, I would think, in my opinion, for specifically, but what matchups we got in this round of 16 and the semifinals and the finals and the quarterfinals are probably going to be great. So I'm going to just looking at the 8 teams left in the Champions League. I'm going to try to, I'm going to go through the matchups just to know who's playing who. Bayern, Inter Milan, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Barcelona versus Dortmund, PSG versus Aston Villa. Who do you think is going to win the Champions League? And then we're going to come backward after you say who you think is going to win. We're just going to look at these matchups, how that's going to probably play out with each of these quarterfinal matchups.
I think for who is going to win, I have my top 2 choices and a wild card. So my top 2 choices, if I don't mention Madrid, it would be very foolish of me, right? So Madrid is like an honorary name that has to be there as my biggest suspect to win the Champions League. But if they do not, then I'm tipping Inter Milan to show themselves again that they are worthy of going the long haul and possibly winning it. And my wild card is PSG. Enrique has been working, but people are not paying attention as much. And I think the Liverpool game announced them extensively on the scene that, yes, in as much as in the group format they struggled to get to the 8th position, but that is what knockout football is about. When you get to the knockout stage, it's a different ball game, right? It is you mastering your tactics and then delivering them in 2 legs. And if anything at all, Enrique, at least based on the current crop of coaches available, happens to be one of the best tacticians on the market. So it is not surprising that, especially the midfield component of PSG looks this good in terms of flair, in terms of the ease of play, in terms of transitions. And who knew Dembele would play this well at 27, having the form of his life at this point. And then they've added in Kvaratskhelia, who on a good day can turn you inside out. And there's Bakula, who's also a very bad boy, who can teach you lessons. If you do not believe me, go and ask Van Dijk and Konate. Right? They don't care. It's like the front 3 can just interswitch and make your life a living hell on any given day, right? So I have PSG as my wild card in this case, but my top 2, Madrid first, Inter second.
Oh yeah, I think that's an interesting take, right? In terms of how you think that's gonna play out. After watching the performance of PSG versus Liverpool, PSG is right there right now. I think they also got a good matchup against Aston Villa. So if they can't handle that, then maybe I thought too highly of them too early. But that attacking trio, Kvaratskhelia, you got Ousmane Dembele. I've always been an admirer of Ousmane Dembele's game. I just always give him the excuse that he can't stay healthy. I don't know if he's just joking around. I always thought that he was too talented and didn't take the game seriously enough. Maybe that's my own sentiment, but I'm glad that he's having a fantastic year, scored for France, absolutely being in the form of his life. Yeah, scoring. I'm absolutely, like, the penalty he took, I just, that had been the thing when I got introduced to Ousmane Dembele. I was like, I know we've seen Santi Cazorla. I was like, how can a guy, like, I don't want to defend this dude coming at me. Is he coming with his right or his left foot? I can't tell. And that penalty he took starting from the left and going to the right, I just felt bad for the goalkeeper. Like, what am I doing here? Like, and it doesn't matter which foot he uses. It's just as good. And that level of talent to be able to do what he does, but with both foot, he just comes at you. He can cut you in and out. If you're a defender and you ever defend, you know that's the worst thing. You want Rashfords. You want guys that he's always trying to put it on his. You want to know predictability, right? But I'm really glad Ousmane Dembele is playing well. Then you got Bakola, as you said. Bradley Bakola, I think I kind of got introduced to him last year. I thought he was a little bit too young and might take a little time, but has really blossomed into his game really quickly, in my opinion. I thought it might maybe good, but maybe a couple, 2-3 years before we see the best of him. But right now he's on fire. And that midfield, Vitinha, Neves, they just control the ball and they work really hard. Vitinha works really hard. Yeah. Vitinha works really hard. So I like the PSG team. I would say if I'm definitely picking one, PSG would be the team I actually pick right now, but Real Madrid is always going to be there either way. And the professional Inter Milan boys, I think that's a good one. I really think the professional boys from Inter Milan, people forget they were in the Champions League finals not too long ago,
about 2 or 3
semi-finals about 2-3 years ago. So this team is not so unfamiliar with going deep in Europe as well, and recently as well. But we'll see how that actually plays out. From what you said, are you saying Inter Milan beats Bayern Munich, Real Madrid beats Arsenal, Barcelona beats Dortmund, and PSG beats Aston Villa?
Yes. If I'm to go with predictions
for the quarterfinals specifically,
company doesn't have what it takes to tactically, per what I've seen of him, to match up against Inzaghi. I don't think he has it in him. Can Bayern Munich pull a quote and unquote surprise? Absolutely, it is Bayern Munich. And the level of talent on the team, I can't take anything away from them. But as I mentioned, when it comes to the knockout stage, it goes beyond talent. The knockout stages, most of the time, are played on the bench. And that is where the tactical nose of the coaches are put to bear, or they are put to test. And I don't think Company has what it takes yet. Maybe over time he might, if Bayern Munich would be generous enough to keep him around. But for the time being, even from the games they played in the group stages against Celtic, the last game they played before playing by Bayern Leverkusen, that was not convincing enough. They had to scramble some goals here and there from Alphonso Davies and then the like. So I do not have a feeling that he would be able to match up with Simeone. And for Arsenal
and Real Madrid,
Real Madrid. Again, as I said, Madrid would always give you the feeling that you can do something, right? And I would have at least been slightly nice to Arsenal if they had maybe Havertz and Saka back. Hopefully they should be back, just so at least they know they give it a fight.
I think Saka is back in training, so that should help.
Good. But as I said, I don't see Arsenal again. It will all go back to the bench again, and Arteta doesn't have anything on Ancelotti. And even on the day when things are going south, Rodrigo can decide the game on his own. Mbappe can do same. Vinicius can just turn on the party and then shut the TV off. Bellingham,
Federico Valverde.
I don't even want to go to the middle just yet, because there's Bellingham, there's Valverde.
Yeah,
these are boys. These are like I call them war generals. They are seasoned in preparation because they've been on the battlefield for goodness knows how long, and then they know what it takes to play at that level, right? So it will all come down to these fine margins, and I don't see us now having that X factor to go above and beyond against a team like Real Madrid. And when we come to PSG Aston Villa, I actually see that to be a very cagey game, because Unai Emery is a very good coach. The Aston Villa team, people do not pay attention to them as much, but they have very good players. Oli Watkins is good. Marco Asensio has been fantastic since joining on loan. Rashford has been assisting him week in, week out. Right? So Rashford is a seasoned professional. He's played at the top level for a long time too. So when we are to go maybe personnel for personnel, I wouldn't say there's that much of a difference in terms of quality. Not quality, pardon me. But in terms of
production, maybe.
Yeah, you see, there are world-class players, and then there are good players who are becoming world-class. All right? That is where I would place almost every player on the PSG team. Yeah. Hakimi has always been flirting with world-class, but he never gets to that point.
Gets there, yeah.
Right. Donnarumma, he's okay. He on his day he can save you points like he did in Anfield. Dembele, Marquinhos,
Nuno Mendes,
like very, 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 very good players, right? And I can see the same for Aston Villa. Maybe they would pale slightly in comparison, but Oli Watkins is a very good player. Rashford is fantastic.
Tillemans,
yeah. Tillemans is okay. He's above average. There's Leon Bailey. Yeah. There's Rodgers, who has been playing out of his mind this season. So the front line is not too bad. And then they have Martinez in post.
That he would compete.
Because he's adjudged the best keeper in the world, at least if we are to go by FIFA rankings and then the Ballon d'Or. So for him to be playing at this level for the first time in his career, at the peak of his powers, in the quarterfinal with a team like Aston Villa, and then playing against it's a quality opponent, but it's a beatable opponent, right?
They do have mistakes in them somewhere.
Absolutely, right? So I it's actually a game I'm looking forward to. because it's one of the games where you can see that there's certain neutrality in terms of quality. So everything will now come down to
execution.
See what's play on the pitch. Exactly. So for that game, I'd call it a stalemate for now. And I'm looking forward to it. And the last
Barcelona versus Dortmund.
Barca Dortmund, yeah, it's a weak matchup. There's absolutely nothing Dortmund can do.
I actually think Lamine Yamal and Rafinha and Lewandowski attack Pedri, Gavi.
There's absolutely nothing if they can go and consult gods. they should just pray they don't concede a lot of goals. I'm happy for Seu Guirassy. He scored like 10 or 11 goals in this campaign, which is very good for an African player, especially given Salah's form this season. Salah scored only 4 goals.
You see how bad Dortmund has been in the Bundesliga. I think Barcelona is going to.
This is a game where you can sleep. When you wake up, you ask how many goals did Barca score.
I think the Dortmund defense is so bad. I don't even know how it's going to.
Nothing. There's not. Maybe if they want to maintain dignity, they should beg UEFA to forfeit the game. So that's not a matchup at all, right? No, but I think I would have to rethink my choices for the winners. Barcelona is looking very good too.
Good, Lamine Yamal, Lewandowski.
Yes, I think I'll change it. So my top Barcelona, my top Real Madrid, second Barcelona, and then my wild card is Inter Milan.
Inter Milan. Okay, so PSG is out. Oh yes. No, Barca has been playing really well. That's why I said the matchups that we're getting this Champions League. Usually, you don't get to the semi-finals before getting this intriguing matchups. We're getting it in the quarterfinals and stuff. So it's and for sure the semi-final and final is gonna be straight up beautiful matchups to actually see. So so now your hierarchy for this is Real Madrid, Barcelona, and then Inter Milan.
Inter Milan, yes.
No, the good thing with the hierarchy is that we are not even getting 2 of these teams playing each other. There's a very good chance all 4 teams or so find way into a semi-final. So that would be a fun scenario to actually look at. So we're going to get into the last few things we're going to be talking about here. We're going to get back into Premier League and Premier League clubs. We're putting them lags this time because the intrigue in the title is kind of little. But let's ask the most important question in the Premier League. Has Liverpool secured the Premier League title? Right now, just a quick breakdown of what's going on. Liverpool has played 29 games with 9 games to go, 70 points, 12 points ahead of the second place Arsenal. Third place Nottingham Forest is at 54 points. Before you get to 4th place Chelsea at 49 points. Chelsea we'll talk about a little bit later to end up the show. And then we'll now go down to a team that we're interested in. Man City is 5th position, 48 points. So we might also take a look at that. I think 5 teams might qualify for the Champions League in England, but we'll take a quick look and see what Newcastle's chances or Brighton at 47 points could be to break into the top 4 or 5 to get a chance at the UEFA Champions League. But we'll now go down the table. Let's get top 10. No. And then we find Manchester United with 37 points and 13th place. But let's start with the first question I would like to pose on here is, has Liverpool secured the English Premier League title for the 2024-2025 Premier League season?
I don't think this is even a question you should ask. So my answer would be, I think this would be by far my shortest answer ever since we started this series of podcasts. Yes, it is done.
Okay, I think that's good enough. For that. Now we can move to talking about some of the teams in the Premier League here. Chelsea, Man City, they fight for a top 4, top 5 place due to this expanded Champions League and the whole way UEFA ranks leagues. England could be getting 5 teams. There's also the option of, we're going to talk about it a little bit, which is my next question I'm going to pose to you. Chelsea is currently in the quarterfinals playing Legia Warsaw in the Conference League, and Manchester United is going to be playing Lyon in the Europa League quarterfinals. If Manchester United can win the Europa League, they get an automatic qualification to the Champions League, which also opens up the 5th position in the a 5th team in the Premier League. But just to go back, let me ask the first one here before we talk about the top 4. Will Chelsea, playing Legia Warsaw in the Conference League, will Chelsea win a European title, the Conference League possibly? Or possibly we could ask Manchester United win the Europa League this season as well.
I think for what it's worth, the two teams, they better salvage their season by winning these trophies. Especially for Chelsea, they have to show something after 3 years of the takeover. This is by far the lowest hanging fruit that there is, so they have no choice but to win it. From looking at even the expenditure and then the costs of players that play in this tournament as against the opponents Chelsea play against, it is no match in terms of the costs of players on the pitch. So for Chelsea, there's no excuse. For Manchester, I would want to say the same for Manchester as well, that there's no excuse for not winning the Europa League. But given how Manchester has flip-flopped, especially with certain opponents certain opponents that have a certain semblance of good quality, or at least above average quality, I have my doubts as to whether they can or not. I feel if they are to go past Lyon and get to the semi-finals, they'll just use that momentum to go all the way and then possibly nap it. For Chelsea, I think looking at how things are, the teams that I have a strong feeling would pose a challenge would be Real Betis, and I think there's Fiorentina as well.
Yeah.
But outside these two, on paper, it looks like a walk in the park. So they have to live up to it and then get it done.
Oh yeah. I think Chelsea just overmatches a lot of the teams in the Conference League in terms of quality and the level of the players and the depth and all that most of these teams in the Conference League probably should be playing in the Europa or something than the Conference League. So I would expect Chelsea to just look at that as something to hold on for this season. Manchester United, I think they're not winning the Europa League. They're not good enough. A lot of these teams in Europa League are pretty decent teams. They are playing Lyon in the next round. I would pick Lyon over Manchester United in that game. So we're going to talk about Manchester United in a bit. Actually, now that we're on it, we can talk about Manchester United before we wrap up by talking about Manchester City and the top four. We'll wrap up with that, but let's talk about Manchester United and the whole news coming out of Manchester United, because on this show I love talking about Manchester United because they would give me a reason to smile. But let's start with a few of the developments. Let's hear your take on it. One is the fact that they are cutting costs. The new owners, Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, kind of cut costing measures by actually saying that no more lunch for non-football players on the team, saving maybe £2 million in a year, who knows, whatever the amount is. Removing the ambassador title for Sir Alex Ferguson for $2 million. Seriously, Sir Alex, without... I would leave my thoughts. I want you to give your thoughts first because I have a lot to go about $2 million for Sir Alex Ferguson. And okay. And then the announcement about trying to build a new stadium. I thought they were broke, but let's get into it. Let me hear what you got to think about Manchester, because it's all things got thoughts.
I think for United, as you were about to mention, without Ferguson, United wouldn't have been who they are. So
they should just pay him £2 million in fact, for just sleeping.
Exactly. He has earned every right to get as much as the club can offer him. So I don't know the mathematics that was done on the part of the owners and how they feel saving $2 million is going to help in any way, including the cost cutting for food and what's not. But one thing I've always been consistent about in terms of the things I know, when it comes to investors or ethnicities and then how they treat investments, I know the British are very stingy people. So it is not a surprise to me that Ratcliffe is going about things this way, where he's attacking the people who are essentially on the bottom of the pyramid when it comes to the earning powers at Manchester United, whereas they are very useless players on bloated contracts on the team that they are struggling to sell or struggling to offload. And I believe that is where they should be turning their attentions to. But just as with every incompetent person, they always look out for the weakest link to use or to point at as a justification for why things are not working in a certain way. But outside that, for Manchester announcing plans to build a new stadium, it is Manchester United, regardless of their form or where they are currently. The brand and then the equity the brand has, I think by far in
Sir
England.
Alex Ferguson helped create that, and it has sustained on just brand for 25 years.
Exactly. No, so again, the brand is there. It is Manchester United, right? From the value the club has to the global fan base it has, and then how we can directly trace everything to a living legend like Sir Alex Ferguson. It comes as no surprise that they are seeking to expand their capacity from 70,000 to 100,000.
100,000, yeah.
And they are going to fill it up in a snap because it's Manchester United, right? So, yeah, for United, this season has been very underwhelming. But this gives them room to start from a clean slate again in the coming season, where Amorim now has no excuse because he's been with the club for, I think, by the time the season ends, he'll be with the club for about 8 to 9 months. So he now has an insight into the ins and outs of the club, and then the material he wants to work with and those he wants to bring in. Right? I think this was the whole essence behind them forcing him to join this early, just so that blues of, I just joined the club and I just had one preseason with them, so I'm still getting used to them, won't be an excuse in the coming season. You've worked with the materials, you know which ones are not good enough for your style of play. So in the off season, you have to make sure you get your recruitments right and hit the ground running to compete in a new season, because everybody starts from scratch. So for Manchester, yes, they are undergoing a whirlwind at the moment, but it is Manchester United, so you can never count them out.
Oh, yo, I will count them out. I am so excited to talk about this because everything about, first of all, I will start with the fact that the things that actually excite me about Manchester United and their current struggles or perceived struggles over the last since Alex Ferguson left the team is because I think the fans are delusional. The fans are the reasons why they can do stuff like this. They keep buying jerseys, they keep filling up the theater of dreams for what? For Europa League and for excuses and for stuff like what the Ineos group is doing right now. And I'm like, they're going to be increasing ticket prices. They're going to be trying to sell a new stadium, and they're not going to be playing in major European championships, and they're going to be finishing bottom half of the table. And the fans are going to pay top dollar. Because the problem, somebody fills the stadium, somebody is delusional enough to call it the theater of dreams, somebody is living 20 years ago. So I love this, because one thing I'm excited about is when there's a change of leadership like this, and I am very vested in the pain and sorrow of Manchester United as a club. What concerns me is that has a competent individual taking over the club. So I'm always trying to look out. I remember Amorim coming in, and I just kind of try to just see his press conference or whatever. And I'm very confident they are going in the direction that allows me to keep coming after them. And I don't think he's that. But I like always looking out to see, this could be a competent person. This could actually make a difference. But now I'm feeling very confident and very good that these are pure incompetent people currently running Manchester United, and I love it. And I don't know how long it's going to happen. I really like the fact that I actually think, are you kidding me? You're going bankrupt and you have money issues. Solution? Let's raise ticket prices. We're not going to be playing in Europe next year, maybe, but it doesn't matter. We're going to raise ticket prices. Sir Alex Ferguson that keeps the enthusiasm. You see him in the stadium, whatever. You're riding on the coattails of what he did. Let's stop paying him. Let's stop giving the guys lunch so that our balls get deflated and nobody looks out for, who cares about who makes sure the equipment guys are good. Meanwhile, we are going to keep paying Erik ten Hag for not coaching us. Very smart guys. We're supposed to... Let me get something. You take over the club, the books are bad. And your first decision is, I'm going to extend Erik ten Hag, and I'm going to spend hundreds of millions of pounds in the transfer market. Are you telling me that these guys don't actually look at the books, or they just took out the club? And now I know there are incompetent people at the top of my... I love it. I really actually love it. Like, these are all excuses. You're admitting, Erik ten Hag was wrong. This is not the solution to your problem. You could have started the solution. When you take over a team, everybody knows it's time to slash. That's the moment you make changes, and people are understanding. You chose immediately to extend what happened? You weren't running low on funds then, right? I don't get it. You extend, you buy multiple. I don't see the impact of a lot of the players that they bought last transfer window. You could have said, okay, let's take one transfer window to look at the books, and these are the decision makers. And your solution is, instead of the players and the top earners and the managers and the who knows what the directors that they brought in. Very incompetent directors, by the way. I don't even want to talk about the excuses for resigning Eric Ten Hag. They were like, we don't know. No, we watched the news. We knew Manchester United problems. And they were like, oh, let's give some time. I'm very excited about the Ineos group. One thing I know for a fact is Manchester United fans are going to feel it. They're going to feel it with this whole new ownership. Because if your solution to having money issues is Sir Alex Ferguson and lunch for the players, and not the hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds spent on really expensive players that are not producing, a management that is not producing, and you, as you said earlier, go to the bottom of the rung to actually be like, let's save money there and not look at yourselves at the top management and save money over there and the players and the most expensive things. Come on, I kind of like it. That's my own opinion. I like what one thing I can tell is that there's going to be a lot of news, and this is not going to go well anytime soon, because they come in. I think this whole idea of there's a lot of people, just as you would say, right? I don't think the Ineos group knows much about football or how to make it work, and I don't think they actually get the importance of Sir Alex Ferguson to the fans. Let me not even say to the game. Let's talk about the Manchester United fans that would love to still see him there. I'm curious to see if they pay those ticket prices, buy the jerseys, and shout Theatre of Dreams, Manchester United, after they don't see Sir Alex Ferguson in the stadium for a year plus. They are not going to be that good. Anyway, because if you're saying that you're going bankrupt, are this current Manchester United players going to be the ones to lift you out of it? I'm curious, is it Joshua Zexi, Rasmus Højlund, and the current players that are going to actually take you to where you want to be? So if you don't invest in players, right, because I don't get it. They have to invest in players and you're taking away lunch. So that would be interesting to see. But let's get to the final thing that I wanted to look at here, which is the top 4 race here, or the top 5 race. What you think? So we got, I think there's Liverpool. So 4th position right now is Chelsea. Nottingham Forest has 54 points, kind of putting themselves in a good position to make a Champions League push. Chelsea has 49 points, 9 games to go. Man City has 48 points. Newcastle has 47, Brighton 47, Fulham 45, Aston Villa 45. When you look at this, I'm going to specifically focus on Manchester City. Any chance Manchester City does not make UEFA Champions League next year? Because that's the only real headline here.
I think it's impossible. The Manchester City would make the Champions League bet easily. Out of the list you've mentioned, the one that stands the least chance of being in the top 5 or top 4 is Chelsea.
You think so?
Yes.
Chelsea is currently right now 49 points, 4th position. Yeah.
Chelsea doesn't have what it takes, unfortunately.
9 games to go too. Yeah.
Because the last 5 games of Chelsea is hell. And that is where the Chelsea plays Liverpool, plays Manchester United. I think plays Nottingham Forest away. I have to check the fixtures again, but the last 5 games for Chelsea is hell. So
let me see here. Just taking a look. They got Manchester United, Newcastle, Liverpool, Everton, Fulham. Last 5 games. Yeah. Nottingham Forest, Manchester United, Newcastle, Liverpool.
Right. I don't see Chelsea getting more than 3 points from the games you mentioned. Chelsea this season has proven that against the big sides, maybe if it's not Spurs, they are just woeful against the big sides. And given the loss of form over the past few months, and the complete decline of the only talisman in the team, which is Cole Palmer, everything just points to the fact that Chelsea doesn't have what it takes to play in the Champions League. Sadly, I'm a Chelsea fan, and it's unfortunate. But looking at things with a pragmatic lens, Chelsea doesn't have what it takes. For City, it is a no-brainer. they are
Okay,
going
so
to
you're
get
saying City definitely qualifies for the
easily.
Champions League, Chelsea
Easily.
would not.
Yes.
I think that fifth position, possible Champions League, makes a huge difference. That's what I would be looking at. But if we use the top four, the way it currently is right now, I would say Liverpool, Arsenal are going to qualify comfortably. Then you have two sports for, I think, three teams on there, or four teams battling for that if you add Newcastle as well. So, but I would say Nottingham Forest has put themselves in a good position. I think they can finish fourth position. They might need about, in the last 9 games, there's a possible 28 points. If they can get somewhere around 15 to 20 points, they can hold on to a top 4 finish. A little bit more difficult for Chelsea, but I think Chelsea and Man City, now that's where you're saying Man City goes ahead of Chelsea. But that would be interesting to see how that actually plays out. If you ask me, I think I want Man City definitely not to qualify. I actually think logically they probably do ahead of Chelsea, but knowing that I want Chelsea to get in and Man City not to get in, that's what I'm going to be rooting for over the end of the season. Anyway, so we're here. That's another fantastic episode. It's match 25. Just for context of the conversations we had, we talked about the African qualifiers. That was a fantastic conversation. Nigeria making you breathe hard. About what's going on. We talked about the Champions League here, going into the Champions League as well, and the Premier League as well much. Any final notes? Thank you, Danny, for coming in on another episode of kind of football talk here. Any final words about any of the things we talked about, or any final words in general in the football world?
No, I think, the past 2 to 3 days, because I've been following the Nations League as well. There's been some good football, very high scoring games. Like the game between
Spain, Netherlands,
Denmark, Portugal, Spain, Netherlands, very, very good games. And so it's been a good spell of very nice football games, and I'm looking forward to the weekend when we get back to club football.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming in here. For everybody listening, it's been fantastic. Hopefully you enjoyed the content. Don't forget, if you love the content, we try to keep bringing this content as much as possible here. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Most importantly, leave your comments. If you find this as clips, if you find this as actual full content, leave your comments. Let's know what you think about the current state of football right now, whether it's nations, if you're in Nigeria or Ghana, if we need to apply for new citizenships, who knows. But either way, let's find out what you're thinking about the football world here, UEFA Champions League. What do you think? Have we missed the point, or we're right on it? But we'll see you, or we'll enjoy football here. My name is CT. I'm with Danny on here, and to everyone listening, peace.